Hello, good morning, everyone. Good morning, good morning.
Morning.
Ooh, good morning, y'all. Hope everybody is doing okay. In this cold weather, giving people some time to come on in. But if this is your first time on a village call or your first time in a long time, welcome, welcome. Thank you for being able to join us today. Gonna give people some time to come on in the room. Hey, Keith, how you doing?
I'm good. I'm good. How are you doing?
I'm good.
It is cold outside, cold and wet.
It is freezing outside. I was like, I was like, today should have been my work from home day.
Yeah, no, I was gonna work from home anyway, but I ran out for a quick errand and just threw on a light jacket. That was a terrible idea.
It is freezing.
Yeah.
Hopefully, we stay warm. Everybody is staying warm today. I know when the weather gets like this, I always get sick. And so I'm hoping that everybody is staying warm, staying healthy today. I'm gonna give people a few more minutes to come on in before we dive into our program for today. But feel free to come off mute if you would like to say good morning. If you like to, maybe this is your first time on the call and you like to just introduce yourself, feel free to come off mute while we give people some time to join in.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Alfred Green. I was invited by Jeff Schicks. I'm actually in Detroit, Michigan. Uh, Glad to be part of the Nashville Village and hope to hear some exciting things. Thank you.
Okay, Detroit in the house. I'm from Detroit, so that
What?
makes my heart happy to hear that. Welcome,
Okay.
welcome. Thank you for joining us today.
All right. Thank you. Yeah.
I hear about some really great things happening in the nonprofit sector in Detroit. So we're gonna have to get out there.
Okay. Absolutely. Sounds good.
Anybody else joining us from another city, feel free to drop it in the chat or come off mute if you're joining us from another city. We are excited to have you. Good morning. I see people coming on in the room. Good morning, everyone. Good morning, Ashley. Good morning.
Don't tell me.
Thank you for joining today.
Give me 1 second, sis. Change my name. Okay.
I see Diamond in the room. Good morning. Okay, y'all, we are gonna go ahead and get things started. We do have quite a bit to share with you all today, and I also want to give everybody a chance to come on at the end of the call and, just tell us a little bit about what's happening in your world. But I do want to get the program started a little bit today. So to give you all a little bit of context, a little bit of backstory, on our guest for today. Keith King, he works at CFMT. And if you are familiar with specifically the event that CFMT did last year in honor of Black Philanthropy Month. Keith and Erica co-facilitated that event together, and it was such an amazing event. Keith has been with CFMT and in the nonprofit space for a very long time. I know he's coming up on his 16th year, if I'm correct, specifically in the nonprofit sector. And so I'm extremely excited to have him with us today to just be able to share some insight, just on what's happening in his world, and just some things that he can kind of share with the village that he thinks will be insightful for us to know, and just kind of how our worlds can intersect. And so just wanted to do that quick introduction. Some of you probably have known Keith, had a chat with him, or has seen his face at CFMT. But for those of you who this may be your first time seeing him, being introduced to him, I just wanted to kind of give that little context. And so Keith, I did give you co-hosting privileges in case you did need to share your screen. But other than that, you can give me a thumbs up if you're ready to get going. Okay, perfect. And just to start the conversation off a little bit, for those who don't know, Keith, can you just tell us a little bit more about the work that you do at CFMT?
Yeah, Shakana, thanks for having me on today. I was trying to clear my nose. I was in Los Angeles all last week and it was 85 and dry.
Oh,
Now
Lord.
it's cold and humid here, so my body doesn't know what's going on. I'm so confused. I like one nostril that's participating, one eye that's participating. Um,
Hopefully you soaked up some enough LA sun for all of us.
Sun, tacos, and yeah, I did. So thanks for the introduction. My name is, like you kind of said, my name is Keith King. I've been in the Community Foundation. It's been 3 years of as of this week. The majority of my career in nonprofit space has been in community outreach, community engagement, and communications. I spent 12 years as the Senior Director of Outreach for Alive Hospice here in Middle Tennessee, and then another 2 years as the Director of Communications at Catholic Charities for the Diocese of Nashville. And so, gotten to see the nonprofit community from all perspectives, and now on this end, the Community Foundation, working in philanthropic services, which is our fundraising arm at the Community Foundation. Um, and the work I do with the Community Foundation with fundraising. So when you think about fundraising in the traditional sense, we're not really that at the Community Foundation. We are, of course, raising funds for the foundation, but ultimately with the hope that those funds that come from donors and corporations are going back out to the communities, to organizations like you all's. So not to live at the Community Foundation for us to do what we please with. And so with our philanthropic services, we're split up into different categories. We have an entertainment division. We have a women's fund, which handles women-led nonprofit initiatives and donors who are identified as women and girls from the age of 2 to 102. And what I'm specifically in charge of at the Community Foundation and Philanthropic Services is a couple things. So new business development for donor advised funds. For those that aren't familiar with donor advised funds, you think about almost like charitable bank accounts. So we have donors that open up funds with the Community Foundation that go into an investment pool that are owned by the Community Foundation, but are able to be pushed out to donate to nonprofit organizations by the donor. So basically manage their charitable dollars. And so I really enjoy that because, again, we're bringing in people who otherwise might have just given a one-time gift to one nonprofit because let's say they're interested in youth athletics or human development or hunger initiatives, able to bring in those donors, put that 10,000, however much they bring in, and let that money grow, and then introduce them to newer nonprofits and other perspectives on things in the community. So if they've been giving a long time to one nonprofit who takes care of, let's say, animal welfare, there's a lot of other organizations out there that could use your support. So let's introduce you to them as well. And so that's something I really enjoy doing, is connecting donors to nonprofits, or even nonprofits to donors. Um, Another big thing that we do is corporate philanthropy. So if you think about when you go to a MAPCO store or Circle K and you see those little coin boxes at the cash register and they say, give your change today to MAPCO for the betterment of the community. I actually manage that program for MAPCO, one of many corporate giving programs. So being able to take that money from corporations, again, helping it grow, and then helping those organizations push those dollars out to community groups There's those that approach them to fundraise, and which we love and we're grateful for. But then being able to talk to a MAPCO, an HCA, CHS about other corporate options or giving options out there. So the organizations I've met through the village or with initiatives we did when we first moved into the building, when we were inviting in newer organizations with budgets less than 50,000 or $100,000, or the nonprofits who aren't fortunate to have at Live Hospice, we had 430 employees. I mean, I think every nonprofit would dream of even having 4 employees. But those nonprofits that have maybe 1.5 employees or a half employee, and so do a lot of that. So connecting businesses with giving opportunities in the community, and then helping businesses fundraise because
We're going to stitch it, 2 stitches.
excuse me.
I think somebody
Oh,
misspoke,
okay.
but I
Okay, yeah. So helping those corporations, even though they are able to bring in money with what they do on the day-to-day through their business operations, when they're trying to fundraise to give to money to the community to bring them in. And then even thinking back, going back to the donor advice piece, um, a lot of education comes with that. So I'm very happy to do that, which will kind of tail into what you kind of was talking about with the Black Philanthropy Initiative. You know, when people think of the community foundation, I haven't thought about this for a long time, even working with the community foundation, is that it's just old rich white people from Belmead, Brentwood, Franklin giving all their big dollars in and hiding money from the tax man and giving it away just kind of as an afterthought. But we're really charity is something we all do, whether it's, you know, if you're a member of an organization, especially an amazing Greek organization like Phi Beta Sigma Fraternity Incorporated, you know, we pay our dues to our organizations. That's philanthropy. You know, when you give to your church, that's philanthropy. When your friend sends you that text message or that group me for double good popcorn when you're paying $36 a bag for popcorn, that's philanthropy. To GoFundMe, that's philanthropy. So being able to introduce that to everyone, anyone who wants to donate. So it's not just $1 million gifts, it's smaller gifts. You know, 5,000 goes a long way over time. And so that's something I really do enjoy educating and helping bring in those everyday people who want to make a bigger impact with the dollars they have. And same things for companies. Um, One other thing I do is employee care programs, and so that's something I really have a lot of fun with, is working with companies to set up funds to be able to help their employees in case of an emergency. So that's something that's really unique to the community foundation that we do here, is working with for-profit entities, nonprofit entities, government entities to be a third party. So if you've got someone who works for, you know, Fannie and Freddie or for Home Depot, and they have their house hit by a tornado, which we know too much of in Nashville. You know, flood, hurricane, if there's a domestic violence issue, if you have a partner, a spouse who has gotten a sudden illness and you had to take off work and now you're not able to pay those bills, we're able to help those companies raise and grow those dollars that live with us, and then we manage it for them. So their HR doesn't have to get involved with it and they keep the company out of it, but their dollar's still in it. Um, and then really something I'm really looking forward to doing even more, especially with the village, is talking more about Black philanthropy. You know, when we talk about the Black community and philanthropy, oftentimes it's just seeing Black people, Black families, Black organizations is just with their hands out and in need. But we have giving power in the Black community. We have the power to give. We do it all the time. It's not really focused on, you know, when you think about a city like Nashville, when you talk about Black philanthropy, the same 4 or 5 names come up, but that's really all of us. And not only in the giving space, but then also on the philanthropic side. So working in the nonprofits like you all are doing. So running organizations, running the development departments, the communications departments, trying to get dollars to go back in our communities. And so, how do we amplify those voices? How do we support leaders who are currently doing it, train leaders who are currently doing it, and then get the community to understand and recognize what we are doing, especially in these very intense times where no one's turning on the news anymore. So that's kind of just a brief intro, and then um, and should kind of, you know, kind of follow your lead, and we'll keep the conversation going from there.
Thank you. That was a really great introduction, and I think that was a great way to kind of give people an initial, for one, idea of CFMT's the way we kind of are changing the way we want to be positioned in the community, I think that we are beginning to be very intentional, to your point about not just being known as the community's bank, but other ways that we can intentionally be involved, especially in terms of Black philanthropy. I do want to go back a little bit about the work that you do with donor advised funds. I know that a lot of our nonprofits, they're obviously always looking for donors. They're obviously always just kind of trying to diversify their funding portfolio. And so, especially with this current landscape, can you talk a little bit about even like the donor landscape and how you've seen things changed, if at all, just in terms of like the donor landscape for 2025, especially with this current administration?
Yeah, no, that's a really good question. Really good points there. I think with the donor advised funds, before coming to the community foundation, that's always something I wondered about, even though I wasn't in fundraising. It's like, who are those people? What are they doing? Why are they doing and where they're giving their money to? And now that I'm here, I really get to see that it's a very broad pool of giving, not only here in Middle Tennessee, but nationwide. And it's really people with these donor advised funds looking to give to where there's need or where they have a personal connection. So get people who are giving to their churches, their schools, they're giving to their community groups that they've been affiliated with that they hear about through friends. You've got people who are using those donor advised funds because of things they see in the media and in the news, things that they're receiving in the mail or things they're hearing at church. And so really just paying attention to those needs. And right now, what I'm seeing a lot of is people are very tuned into what's going on in the community, but also trying to be wary of perception. I think that's actually, Q, hold on for a second. I've got a weather alarm going off. I'm going to close the door so it doesn't interrupt the audio.
While we take a quick pause, does anybody have any initial questions that they like to drop in the chat? Any initial curiosities that they like, just kind of for us to ask Keith about, especially with him being positioned at CFMT and the insight that he does have with donors, even how to build relationship with donors, how to diversify your donor portfolio. I know a big thing that we've been coming up on is this topic of collaboration. One thing that we've been really trying to introduce people to is the idea that donors are more willing to kind of donate to a program that is co-collaborative, that is collaborative. And so, even with that, I think that I know somebody just dropped a question in the chat of how do we build relationships? How do you build relationships with donors? How do you maintain those relationships with donors? Even some things that donors are maybe a little bit more weary of in this landscape with this current administration, some language that people are a little bit weary of. Keith, I'm gonna let you go ahead and finish your thought. I was just asking people to kind of start dropping questions in the chat of things that they're a little bit curious about. So once you finish your thought, we can kind of go into that.
Okay, yeah, yeah, no problem. I think that's kind of just where I was going with that is seeing that donors are really paying attention through the newspaper, things they're hearing, and wanting to really give to where the needs are not being met in the community. You hear a lot about the fear over DEI and how that's just driving people away from everything. I mean, you go on the CDC website and it's for a couple of weeks you couldn't find basic information on HIV/AIDS research because people were scared, or the people were scared because there was gender identities mentioned there, or there's like what was going on with the Black Women's Fund in Atlanta. Nothing malicious at all, but just people really, being wary right now, but then also wanting to give. So you see a lot of very big, high dollar, high net worth individuals and also regular everyday run of the mill people just wanting to make sure their dollars can go to where the need is. And so it's really incumbent upon us right now at the Community Foundation to start being able to bridge those gaps and standing in the gap and filling in those needs. For a long time with the Community Foundation, and not just here, across the country, it was always kind of a divide where you had the Community Foundation in the middle, and we're going to hold the nonprofits over here. We're going to keep our donors over here, and then we'll be the mediator. We're not going to bring them together. But it should have happened a long time ago, and we've been doing a better job with that, especially with the village coming in and with the new stuff that we've got going on in our community outreach programs of bringing those two worlds together. But I think that's definitely something that donors are looking for. For a long time, you'd hear nonprofits saying, we want to meet your donors. How do we get in front of donor advised holders? But the donor advised holders are saying, how can we get in front of the nonprofits? So how do we make that happen?
Mm. So what I'm going to touch a little bit on CJ's question. She said, "How do you build relationship with donors?" And I think a kind of another question that I can add to that is, what are what are some things that nonprofits need to be prepared for when they are approaching these donors and they're approaching these conversations with donors?
I think the one of the best ways I see right now is, and some organizations are doing a great job of this, and it shows, is your social media. And I say that, very caringly. People are on their phones all the time, and people are going on Instagram, and people are typing in keywords. I've had donors who have given money, large sums because something on Instagram popped up they really liked, and they see this organization constantly doing things in their community. You get donors. So I've had donors tell me that they've, were approached by organizations and they've gone on their Instagram or Facebook, and the last post is from 2018. So, what are you doing? Um, you can't be that busy that you haven't posted on your social media to show what you're doing in the last 5 or 6 years. And then you still have those old school donors who are, getting mailings, they're getting mailers and they're learning about organizations that way. So if you have things that are going out in the mail, if you have an opportunity to increase what's going on in the mail, that still works. I think also is just being out and about in the community and being visible. Don't be afraid to have a t-shirt with your nonprofit on it and go to the hot chicken festival. If there's organizations going on in the community, if there's a backpack drive, even if you don't have a booth there, still be there and be visible and just mingle with the people. That face-to-face connection is still unmatched. Participate in community events. People are at these events. If you have an opportunity when someone says they're doing an event in Nashville and the nonprofit booth is $50, if you've got the $50, I will go ahead and spend that. Especially the ones that are free. You get sometimes where people will have or events and they want donors there, they want the vendors, they want the nonprofits there that are in the community, but we'll get people that won't go because they don't want to be somewhere Saturday at 8 o'clock in the morning. And I know that's hard during football season, but the good games don't come on till 3 o'clock anyway on Saturdays, sometimes noon. I'm a USC fan, so they don't come on till midnight. But getting out there and being in front of the people and taking advantage of the invitations that come from the community foundation. You're gonna start seeing that more and more, with the village. Then Shekinah, the event that, Erica, myself, and others worked on back in August. We had a great crowd, but we invited a lot more people to that event. And there were donors there were nonprofits there, and there's people that have carried those conversations out there. Afterwards. And so, we're going to be trying to do more of these events. So when you get a note from Shekinah or Erica, myself, it's, hey, come to the Community Foundation, come, you will meet those donors.
Thank you for just kind of, I know sometimes people can give advice on how to build relationship with donors that feels very just like not realistic, not doable. So thank you for giving, things that people can even start integrating into their day-to-day now as soon as they get off this phone call.
Yeah,
Um,
and I think too another thing, because donors, especially like the donors who've been giving for a long time, they've heard a lot. They've heard a lot. They've heard a lot of things. So when you think about what your organization does, when you're telling your story, don't be afraid to give the details of what you're doing. If you're saying we're helping at-risk youth, that okay, there's a lot of organizations that have been doing that since 1776 in the United States. What are you doing specifically to help at-risk youth? What zip codes and area codes are you in? What kind of programs do you have? Are you doing theater programs, career education programs? I think sometimes we get so general, people stop listening to us because you're saying the same thing I've heard 15 times in the last 3 days.
I do want to pause because I see someone's hand up. Harold, did you have something you wanted to add?
Thank you, Keith, for that great information. But let me throw this plug in there. We're all not a part of not that great an organization of Phi Beta Sigma. I am part of the men of Omega Psi Phi Fraternity Incorporated. You had throw that little Sigma plug in. We're not gonna have that today. So we're not gonna have that today. It's not
Lord.
a blue day, okay? This is a purple day, purple and gold day. We're not gonna do that. So that's the first thing. The second thing is the information that you're giving is great. I'm the director for workforce development and programming at the Urban League. We've done a lot of things with the Community Foundation. We've gotten grants from you guys in the past. Um, my question is, how do we get in a space where it's so many nonprofits in the city and so many donors that want to give money, but that area is so saturated? So how do we angle ourselves, and me from a workforce development standpoint and working with reentry and different types of population, how do we angle ourselves in a way that we can stand out, and it's not because we don't want everybody else to get it, but because let's call it a spade key. We're all fighting for the same money, but we want to work together versus not work together. So how do we work together collectively on this village, and part of the organization is part of the village? How do we collectively get that money and filter it down so all our programs can have a level of sustainability?
I think you just hit the nail on the head, Harold, when you said collectively. We do see more and more donors who are looking for that, organizations that are working together on a common goal, and then being able to give to that cause, or even give to all who are working together to that common goal. Shout out to the Urban League. I went to your golf tournament 2023, and you all were the one of the first organizations I saw that had Whataburger at an event, actually boots on the ground, forward facing and giving. They're a great organization to work with, but they're pulled in so many different directions. So, you guys being able to do that as a testament. It was an Urban League event. So a lot of white people at the event. You guys had that outreach. Enterprise Rent a Car was there. That was my first job here in Middle Tennessee. Shout out to them. So I think you guys do a great job of that. I think, I was in a conversation with a donor the other day. This donor is 60 years old, media mogul, just, came here a few years ago. He's got all kinds of money, but he wanted to know where he could go and find who was doing what. And so I think, not putting it all on the nonprofits. I think when donors come to us and they're asking who's doing what, we on our end have to do a better job and continue doing what we're doing in the work. So I won't say it's all on the nonprofits. You guys do this, you guys do that. Organizations like us, can really be helpful. Some of the things we're going to be doing, I know our community impact team is going to be do some convenings coming this spring. So bringing the nonprofits to the table to talk about things you're seeing and needs you have, so that we can draft this up to send to our donors. You've got the Center for Nonprofit Excellence, which used to be Center for Nonprofit Management. They've got Megan over there, who I've known for my whole time in nonprofits. So she's very talented community and trying to work on more and more events. So I think, you all being able to give us that feedback, who have those touch points with the donors, is going to be very key in this. I think also, because you're right, because, what Metro Davidson County it's the biggest county here in Middle Tennessee. I mean, here in Tennessee, but there is a finite donor pool here in Tennessee. One thing we talk about with our team also is grant writing. I think that's huge for our organizations, is that grant writing, and not just applying to the same grants here in Middle Tennessee. We've seen organizations be successful getting grants out of New York, Los Angeles, Houston, DC, those big national organizations, your Ford Foundations, those big dollar pools. And a lot of times they want to see collaboration. So not necessarily, Urban League is working with Backfield and Motion. We're going to give them all money, but seeing that Urban League is doing a youth after school referee training for kids 13 to 19, we're going to give the Urban League money because we know this money is going to not only benefit the Urban League, but those other organizations they're working with. So, having those collaborative programs, working together, we get so competitive here in Middle Tennessee. It's, we work with kids, you work with kids. So we're going to make sure we're getting seen more than you, and that's just not going to cut it. That's not going to work. And then also I would say look at opportunities to reach out to donors in those zip codes that aren't the traditional ones you think of. So, a lot of times we think of giving, Nashville is the most zip code centric city I've ever lived in. You ask people where they're from, in any other city, it's East Side, West Side. You ask Shekinah what part of Detroit she's from, she's going to tell you a side, or maybe she can tell you she's from 6 Mile, 7 Mile. Nashville people, they say 37215, 37013. And so you think about, 37215, 37209. When you think of that other side of Nashville where the money is. Um, these houses in Antioch are starting to go for $500,000, $600,000 too. Um, Donaldson is getting really priced. So there's wealth around the city. So don't be afraid to go to an event at the Goodlettsville Chamber of Commerce or the Donaldson Hermitage Chamber of Commerce, the Cane Ridge Neighborhood Association. So putting yourselves in unfamiliar zip codes in Nashville is also going to benefit you too in the long run.
Thank you for that, Keith. We have another question in the chat from George. He's saying, can you talk more about corporate sponsorship and how an organization can integrate corporate sponsorship in their annual fundraising plan?
Yeah, no, that's a good question right there. We've got several big organizations here in Tennessee that have funds through the Community Foundation that they grant out to nonprofits from through fundraising events they threw throughout the year. Their websites, if you go on them or even come to our website and you can see our list of funds. So look at the Community Foundation website and you can look at a list of our funds and see which corporations have charitable funds with us, and then use the links to go to their websites and see what their requirements are. Some of them are grant processes where you have to fill out a lot of information and then go into a pool. Some of them, like MAPCO, I mean, go to the MAPCO Foundation website, and applying for grants from them is actually pretty easy. It's just kind of a fillable form. It's almost like when you're going on and putting your food order at a restaurant. It's pretty simple to work with, and I see them giving a lot of money out to the community. So yeah, check out our website. Look at the corporate dollars that we have there. Um, I'm on some boards of directors and have been on boards of directors in town and here, and everyone always tells you get an HCA employee on your board, and then you can get HCA dollars, which is very true. HCA is not going to give you money if you don't have an HCA employee on your board. So that's always key right there for HCA dollars. But yeah, look at the big companies in Nashville. When I was at a lab hospice, one thing we did, I used to do a conference or symposium on faith, spirituality, and end of life care. And how I started going after corporate dollars is I was get the Nashville Business Journal, and they would have those lists of the top 20 employers in Nashville for whatever quarter or whatever year we were in. And I would just go down that list and I would hit up everybody from Vanderbilt, Ingram Industries, HCA, CHS, Genesco, and I would just go through that list and peel through that list. So the Nashville Business Journal is also a great tool. But yeah, with corporate dollars, I think sometimes they could be, George, they can be kind of intimidating. They were for me. They have been for me for a long time. But yeah, use our website and then just go ahead and apply because you can't get a no if you don't ask.
I think that kind of also answers Lemitra's question. She asks, is there a good way to search for donors that are interested in the mission that MP has? And so do you know, just to kind of expand on that, I know you said CFMT's website. I know you said, MAPCO is a really good one, like corporate donors. Is there any other way that you know of that people can kind of like search for donors? Are there any websites that maybe has like a list of donors and has the missions that they are interested in donating to?
Yeah, I don't want to keep throwing us out there as the end all be all, but in the CFMT annual reports, you can find a list of our funds and you can see what they give to and what they contribute to. So you can see, like the Ann Zelly Fund at the Community Foundation is interested in urban renewal and arts, so that kind of stuff. So use our annual report to your advantage. I would also say we are working with an intern right now, and he's building scripts for us to help identify our donors by the causes that they are giving to historically and currently, and even by zip code. So we are trying to use that to plan programs so we can say, hey, in the last 26 months, we've had 30% of our donors give to arts and after school programs. Let's do a program of bringing those nonprofits and then invite donors to come meet those nonprofits. So I think those are really good tools. Um, Another way I think, would be helpful is through the Giving Matters website. If you don't have a profile on Giving Matters, I would highly encourage you to set up a profile on Giving Matters. Is completely free. If you've not updated it, I'll go ahead and update it because they're rolling out a new website that will make it a lot easier for donors to find you all by zip code, by charitable category. And so they'll even be able to map it out by where you are. So if someone says, I want to give to organizations that teach kids in low income communities how to swim, they can go on there and file it and drill it down to, the very basics of what they're looking for. So Giving Matters is also a really good way to find donors. We have a lot of donors that use Giving Matters to find organizations and organizations that find donors that way. When we talk about the Black Philanthropy event, we had that event, Chicago, what was it like August 26th, 27th, the end of August.
Yep.
By the first week in September, we had already set a record for the number of donor visits that were specifically looking for Black-led nonprofits, and then the amount of dollars raised through that website. So we raised more money for Black-led nonprofits in a week with one event and promoting it out there than we had in, the year previously. So I definitely would be on Giving Matters, 100%. I
And
used to
giving
work in an organization where as soon as the Giving Matters email came through to renew our CEO, I was a contact. She would tell me you have until the end of tomorrow to get this completed. So I mean, it was that serious for us.
And Given Matters, for those of you who don't know, is also based at CFMT. So if you have any questions about how to get set up on Given Matters or want some additional information for that, Given Matters also is housed here at CFMT. And if you have any questions about that, feel free to email me and I can get you a contact person there. I do want to, because I can, one last question in the chat is someone said, how can you get the annual report? The annual report, correct me if I'm wrong, Keith, it just lives on our CFMT website.
Yeah, yeah, it lives on our website. I think it goes back maybe even a couple years. We do have a newer website, so you won't find any super old ones. And then also, if you're in our office, you can just get a copy from Christina at the front desk. I know a lot of you all have met Christina. She's super helpful, and if she doesn't have the answer to something, then she always knows she can call one of us. So if you're in our office and you want to grab a paper copy, I highly encourage that as well.
Thank you for that. And Keith, since the conversation is already kind of like leading there, I wanted to talk to you a little bit more about Black philanthropy. I know that we've already been just talking so much this year about the history of Black philanthropy and the nonprofit industrial complex. And so for those of you who aren't super familiar with how the nonprofit industrial complex, um, just kind of impacts nonprofits, especially on their day-to-day, especially in terms of like looking for donors, how have you seen the landscape specifically of Black philanthropy kind of been reshaping in Nashville? And what is like, I guess, a tidbit that you would tell, nonprofits who are trying to maybe like diversify their donor funds? Because I know even when I'm talking to a lot of people and when they're telling me the donors that they're reaching out to, a lot of them they're just kind of not, they're not really considering the donors of color and the philanthropists of color in the community. And so can you kind of talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, for sure. There's a lot of Black dollars here in Middle Tennessee and in Nashville and nationwide, and you're totally right. We nonprofits have not traditionally done a good job of going after those those color donors of color, period. Again, we say we'll see the big Black business people in town, and if we can't get any money from them, then we kind of stop there. But when you really think about philanthropy and what it looks like, especially for millennials and Generation Z, the Black community is really leading in philanthropy and leading in what the future is. A lot of people bemoan GoFundMe, but GoFundMe is still charitable giving. It's still giving to causes. It's still giving to people. It's still getting money in the hands of those in need. And so with GoFundMe, it's really easy to give. And I think a lot of that is what people are looking for is convenience. We're busy. And Shekinah and I, we work, our desks are right next to each other, and we hardly see each other because we're busy. we're all ripping and running. And so making it simpler to give for those people who want to give to you. So thinking about QR codes at events, thinking about your widgets or what you have on your websites or your social media. You know, when we were at our event, when we got the survey and the feedback from the Black Philanthropy Month event, a lot of what the feedback we got, or we were expecting, is not what we got. People were saying they want to be seen as philanthropists. They want to be seen as being able to give, and not only be seen, but their dollars valued. If I've got $100 I would like to give to your organization, I don't want to feel like I'm fighting you to take my money, because sometimes it feels like that. It gets uncomfortable for us. And so if you make it too hard for me to give you my money, I'm not going to give you my money today. I'm not going to give you my money tomorrow. I don't care what you change about that. So we see a lot of organizations chasing dollars off by making things, too difficult. I was telling somebody yesterday in a meeting, it's like if I come to you and I say, I'd like a cheeseburger, don't tell me how to breed cattle. Just give me a cheeseburger. Tell me where I could get a cheeseburger at. I think we get into that too much in the nonprofit space. We overcomplicate things. If you want people to know you're educated, text them a picture of your degree. you know, so don't overcomplicate things. Make things, make people's, it easy for people to give you their money. And then also when we look at Black philanthropy, let's start looking at the younger people. Because again, when you think Black philanthropy, you automatically think, uh, no judgment because I've got gray hair, but we think gray beard, pipe, wise old man. And much respect to our elders, and we need to not only cultivate them as donors and respect them as their position in the community, but think about their 40-year-old son and their 20-year-old grandson, those people that have not as much money to give, but still money to give, because that person that remembers giving you $20 impact of their $20 today, they're gonna give you 20,000 in the future when they have the 20,000 or the 10,000, or they're gonna come volunteer for you. Opening up those volunteer opportunities, because philanthropy is just not dollars. We think about philanthropy always as dollars in the door, but volunteering is also philanthropy. Volunteering saves your organization's money. Volunteers save your organization's time. So, cultivating those volunteers, and then volunteers oftentimes turn into donors. Look at nonprofits I work with and look at some of the largest gifts they're getting. They're not from big money people in the community. They're from longtime volunteers. So being able to cultivate from within. So bringing in those Black donors, bringing those Black volunteers and those Black kids to your organization. When I was at a live hospice, as a matter of fact, we had a volunteer, the pastor her whole life. She was a minister. She led congregations. She led volunteer outreach ministries. Very humble person. Drove a little old Hyundai Sonata. She died. She left the organization $800,000 in cash and a house in Brentwood worth over $1 million. That was someone that no one ever expected to leave $80, let alone over $2 million in gifts. But she felt the value and felt the connection there. So I didn't really think, make it easier for people to give you, make it as easy as possible to give people your money. Look at everyone who comes to your doors as not just someone who could benefit from your services, but someone you could benefit from their services. And get out and about and be with the people. And when you're thinking about your fundraising, I think that too, this is another thing, Shekinah. You remember when we were planning the Black Philanthropy Month event, we made it fun, we made it hip, we made it relevant. Um, I'm 40. I don't want to come to a black tie event. I'm not putting on a suit to come give you my money. I'll put on some jeans and a sweatshirt. I'll put on a seasonally appropriate outfit that still looks good and will make my mom proud. But people don't want to come eat rubber chicken and put on suits and ties anymore. And those events are costing y'all a lot of money. So get the most bang for your buck also. If it's going to be a kickball tournament, if it's going to be a lunchtime program, if it's going to be a day party, don't look down on those, because that's not traditionally what we're used to. Think about what's going to make a biggest impact for your dollars and what's going to bring in that 25 to 50-year-old who doesn't want to put on a tie like me.
Thank you for that. And I want to kind of piggyback on something that you said, is treating people like philanthropists. I know a lot of times it's rare that I go to an event or I volunteer for something, and afterwards, just receiving a thank you for donating your time, just receiving the email, hey, thank you for showing up. I think not just even like the big donors. I know when you're gonna send somebody a thank you note when they gave you $100,000 gift. But even if somebody only donated $5 or an hour of their time, send them thank you notes. There's nothing, it's nothing to send an automated email to the people who were able to volunteer for your event and say thank you for your philanthropy. I think being identified as a philanthropist gives people the courage to want to keep doing things that will identify them as a philanthropist. And I think that as people of color, just like we lead everything else, I think that we lead Black philanthropy so much in such a way that sometimes it becomes like so much of our norm that we forget to like acknowledge that and give people that their proper thank you for being philanthropists, because that's what it is. And so I just want to give y'all the courage to for one, call yourself a philanthropist, because that's something that I've been preaching since Black Philanthropy Month. And then on the last note, because I know that I feel like we've been touching a lot on the topic of collaboration. As somebody, and I feel like you touched on it a little bit earlier, but I just want to kind of talk about it a little bit more as we kind of end the conversation, because this is something that's been coming up for the village a lot. As somebody who, works with funders a lot, what is something that what's a big problem that you see just in the philanthropy landscape, specifically around collaboration and duplication? Because I know that you said in Middle Tennessee, it can be discouraging when you are one of many nonprofits doing an after school program or doing community outreach, or you have a nonprofit geared towards support is something that you feel like every other nonprofit in the community supports. So kind of, can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, we in Middle Tennessee, especially in Nashville, have a lot of organizations with very similar missions who are situated in very similar communities, in the same communities, who have the ability and who do different things. But like I was saying earlier, don't always sell themselves on those different things. So it almost comes, it seems like, you are in Hermitage and you help kids fix bicycles. And this guy is in Hermitage and helps kids fix bicycles. Um, what else are you doing? Because really setting yourself apart. And if you all do the exact same thing for the exact same demographic, don't be afraid to collaborate and get together. Because we end up, when we compete so much for dollars, it's not one person that ends up getting it more than all of us. It's none of us getting the money. Because when people, especially with donors, when donors come in and they say, well, this seems disorganized. Why does this community have so much of the same people doing the same stuff? I don't think they yet have their stuff together. Or, this person I talked to is a really great leader, but I met with this other organization, and this person's a really good marketing person. Why don't they just work together? They're doing the same thing. Why don't you be the CEO and this person be the CMO, be the chief marketing officer? And so that's things that people do see and donors do see. I've sat in some mayoral forums with mayoral candidates, they'll come to the community foundation to have these discussions. And that's something that leaders currently and future leaders of Metro see as something that we can do better, and what donors see that we can do better. We've had an organization doing the same thing that you want to do today, that's been doing it for the last 40 years, and they've been doing a great job at it. What is the value proposition that you bring to the community that's going to add something that this organization is not doing it? So I think, not being afraid to pivot from what your original idea or what you're currently doing is, but if you have the opportunity to collaborate with another nonprofit, if you're doing programming winter through spring and they're doing summer through fall programming, collaborate with them to get your kids to their program through those seasons, and then vice versa for them to send you their kids for that. If you're working with, formerly incarcerated women and job training, and we've got Free Hearts doing that same thing, that's been doing it for a long time in the community, not only reaching out to Free Hearts to seeing what they're doing so great, that works for them, but what can you do to help them with what they're doing and what your organization is doing that's different than what they're doing. And there's no shame in looking at that and evaluating that. I think, I live in Hermitage. I keep mentioning Hermitage. Like 4 or 5 miles down the road from me, there was a Bojangles, and then Popeyes showed up. Bojangles is gone. Now Popeyes and Bojangles aren't going to collaborate on anything. They both sell uh, kind of Cajun style chicken, one that people like better than the other, and so be it. We're fortunate that we don't have that in the nonprofit space when we work together and when we try and when we're next to each other. You know, we all have something different that we can do or an opportunity to collaborate with each other and help with each other. I am seeing a lot more of that now. That's been something I've really, really enjoyed is organizations, you know, contacting me and saying that they met someone in our building and they would like to get their information because they have an opportunity to work together and not to fundraise together, but really working together. Because when you work together and you're doing the good work, the dollars will come. It might not always be the big millions and millions of dollars of gifts or hundreds of thousands of dollars of gifts, but those hundreds do add up. You know, we're going after this one donor for a $10,000 gift. You can get a hundred donors give you $100, that still adds up. It also comes together. And so, you know, those little gifts add up. The big gifts are nice. You never know when they're gonna come. And then just looking at our community right now, it's changing. I remember I moved to Nashville. My very first apartment, it was a two bedroom. I paid $575 a month. Then I moved on up and I got a two bedroom for 810. You're not getting anything for that in Nashville now except for getting out of town. Um, and it's going to be even more compounded when we get the new Titan Stadium, the new Nissan Stadium for the Titans to go 2-14 and 2-15 and you know that new East Bank development. So this community is going to continue to need all of us. And so it's going to also require us all to be working even more together because it's changing and it's changing fast.
So, Shatana, let me just kind of one question, one not even one question, one statement, Keith. You definitely said something that hit the nail on the hammer on the nail. I came here from New Jersey, and when I realized here when I came to Nashville that everybody wasn't working together for the common goal, that everybody was in this silo, that they weren't trying to work together to get to the common goal. So one of the things that strategically what I said was, how do I create community friends and see if you all align into the vision and the mission statement that we're doing from a workforce development standpoint. So that being said, that we've looked at working with Connection of Americas, like you see, like we've done job fairs. Now I'm doing another one with American Job Center. So I'm seeing the need of working together with multiple organizations to get to a common goal. So last year, just to throw numbers, I know we short on time. That last year, working with Connection of Americas, working with Black and Brown, we were able to service 950 people. I'm gonna say that again on this call. I like to work with anybody that want to work that's aligned into the mission statement. We
Yeah.
serviced 950 participants came through our doors. Last March, we had 500 people at the fairgrounds that came through those doors. Out of that, probably about 60 or 70 got employed. They were hiring people on the spot. We were having big time employers that were there, like NES. That's a career. That's a career. Piedmont Gat. That's a career. Like like looking at organizations you can work together. So now the one we're doing on June 12th, that's a plug. And I will send that to the flyer once it's done. That one is going to be, I want to service about at least 700 to 1,000 people. And that's going to be in South Nashville. So when you talk about working together for a common goal, that's the thing that we do in the workforce on the workforce team. But Keith, I would like to come and sit down and talk with you because it's some stuff that I'm looking at. How do we look at what sustainability look like? And I think that as a call and as nonprofits on here, what does the sustainability look like? And how do we like? I think a couple of people said on how do we be in the room with the right donors? So that's how you can lead us. For I know for me, from a workforce development standpoint, how do you put us in the right room with the right donors that want to give out this money?
Yeah, you know, I mean, you hit the nail right on the head. I'm putting my email address in here right now. So if anybody wants to come sit down and hang out and chat, um, there we go. I'd love to. I love this stuff. I mean, this is my passion. This is what I love doing is just making these connections. So always happy to, and I'm always happy. And when I've told nonprofits this before, when if I get when I have your information, I know what you're doing with organizations. I know your Black Lemonade. Mentioned Free Hearts earlier. Organizations, when donors call, I'm always happy to give the donors everyone's name. And I've given donors people's contact information. It's been great to see what's come from that. So never scared to share that information. I've had someone reach out to me before wanting to make donations to the community foundation because of XYZ. And it's just, well, here, call this number and give that money to this organization. We don't even need to be in the middle of that. So happy to, sit down with anyone who wants to come to the office, or if I can come to you. I always like getting out in the community. That's something we want to do more and more with our donor services team, is to get out to the nonprofits, because I think it helps to be able to see, what you all are doing and be able to tell the story, because that's what we're doing at the end of the day, is we're telling stories to our community about our community. So if any, invite me out to your place, happy to come out. And I always share the information I get back to my team. I've had team members come out of meetings and say, "Hey, can you give me a card for that guy you met with the other day? I've got a donor who wants to write them a check, but they want to call somebody first." So always happy to meet, and it's just funny. I was in LA last week. I mentioned at the beginning of the call because my uncle died. Um, and we had the funeral in Long Beach, where I'm from. We had the repast in South Central LA, Watts, where everybody's scared of. And it was like, my dad and all my uncles were Crips, and some of the friends that grew up were Bloods, and we were in a Crip neighborhood. And all these Bloods and Crips together now in their 40s, 50s, and 60s. And it's like the last 20 or 30 years, besides being rivals, they done been in a business together, you know, married each other's families, at this park, walk across the street and tell all the young folks, don't come over to the park today. We kicking it. So if the Bloods and Crips can get together all these years, then we can all get together that's doing the same thing. So that's what I'm gonna leave this meeting.
Thank you for shouting that out, Keith. And I do want to say, because we've been talking so much about the topic of collaboration, it is, I think it's important that we also leave on the note of donors. It's not by accident that I don't want to say all of a sudden, but it's not by accident that donors and grants are being so heavy on collaboration, especially within people of the Black community. I remember when I heard Erica say, because and collaboration is so important, y'all. And because they think that we cannot do it, they're going to make it a requirement. And so because we have to look to the models that we have in the communities. I know Elimo Empowerment and Black Lemonade collaborated successfully. And I know that we're literally planning a collaboration retreat. And when you hear the word collaboration, we don't want to make the assumption that people know how to collaborate successfully. And so even just introducing those conversations. Hey, I saw you do a successful collaboration with so and so. Can you tell me the details of how y'all made that happen, how y'all made that work? Because we know that in order for it to be successful, you have to have people in the community who are modeling what that looks like. And so I just wanted to kind of throw that out there. I know we had a few questions in the chat, but I know we only had Keep till 12. And so um we have his email in the chat. I'll also include it in the newsletter for anybody who wants to just reach out to Keith for any specific questions. We're always at CFMT. Come by, see us. We love to see y'all and learn more about the work that y'all are doing. With the last few minutes, I do want to just give people time, if you have a few extra minutes, to stay on and hear about some events that people are having in the community. I see the flyers coming through in the chat, and so I do want to give y'all the rest of the time, if you are able to stay on, just to kind of hear about what's happening in the community. But Keith, thank you so much for being able to join us today. You gave some extremely helpful information, some extremely insightful information, that I know people will reach out to you afterwards, but people can take back into their own organizations. And so I do thank you for being able to, just join us today. And if you need to hop off, thank you for that. But if you want to stay on, you're more than welcome to do so.
Yeah,
But I do.
I'll turn my camera off, and I'm gonna stay on just to give everyone their space. But what I will say before I get off is, if Elon Musk himself hasn't showed up at your door and said something, don't stop doing what you're doing. We're not gonna stop using Black on what we're doing, and gender identity and what we're doing. We see a lot of organizations on our Childhood Tennessee, Child Care Tennessee initiative For instance, I was talking to them yesterday. People are just stopping their funding requests and are stopping their programming because they're so scared. I mean, we're in scary times, but our community still need us. So until someone literally shows up at your door and tells you stop, don't stop, because our communities really need us. And so thank you all for what you do. Shekinah, thanks again for the time, and looking forward to seeing everyone else here in the near future. Even Omegas.
Thank you.
Okay, I would like to say something. This is Jahar Bahar with Free Hearts. I would like to have an ask if anyone can help us in the community. Don't judge us. However, we are hosting an exhibit from April the 21st through the 24th, and we need a location. I know this last minute. Don't shoot the messenger. We just need some help. This will be our first exhibit that we'll be hosting. It's from the Free Her Institute, and we're gonna also be having a screening called Commute, and we would like any help, any assistance with this matter. April the 21st through the 24th, and April is Second Chance Month. So if anybody is aware of any location that can be of assistance, please let us know. And we need to host it needs to hold at least 88 plus people. Thank you.
Jahara, thank you for giving that shout out. I know our first initial thought is always to have it at CFMT, which if the room is available, you're more than welcome to. But if not, if anybody knows about any brick and mortars or any, any facilities that they can have it at, please drop it in the chat. I know Kami just said if you are a registered 501c3 MNPS schools facility use form.
I guess I'll come off and I'll tell you about some events that we got going on. In the Urban League office, we have Workforce Wednesdays, which we're doing every other week. Next week, we will be having a job fair, a mini job fair with the One Hotel at one of our other locations. That's at MDHA at the Voices Center, 78 Lafayette. I'll send that flyer. I'll send that flyer to you, so you'll have that, so everybody can get that. We also have our expungement clinic tomorrow, which was rescheduled from the 19th of February because of the weather. So I'll send that out today too, so you'll have that. So you have anybody that needs to get some stuff expunged, definitely come on Friday in the Urban League office from 10 to 2. We'll be in there. We'll be in there with Howard Gentry's office, trying to make a difference in the community. So we got a lot more stuff that's going on. That I'll make sure that the flyers will be put out there. But I gotta hop off because I gotta start right now Workforce Wednesday. So thank you guys for your time, and thank you guys for the information for today.
Thank you for joining in. Hey, Royal Table, I see your hand is raised.
Hey, good afternoon. We also want to just share an event, and it was definitely a great session today. We shared the flyer earlier in the chat, but on March 8th, this upcoming Saturday, we're having our male mentorship. We Are Kings. It's going to be our third session, and fortunately, we're going to be able to have some speakers out as well, and I'm excited for that. So we're going to have Cami Butler from Black Lemonade. So I'm definitely excited to have her. And then we're also going to have Karen Johnson as well, joining us from one of the initiatives and others as well.
Thank you for that. And is it specifically for the men, or is it open for everybody?
But this particular event is for all males first, but we do have other programs where both genders can come. But this one particularly, especially with all the things that's happening in the school systems with the threats and so forth, and with our co-founder here, just to have a safe space for kids. But we've had it to where all males are coming out regardless of age, so we're not turning anybody away. It's been really nice, I'll tell you. And it's at the 37208 Community Center.
Thank you for that. Thank you for giving that clarity. I see Marcus has his hand up. Marcus, did you have something you want to add?
Yeah. Hey, everybody. Thank you for the meeting today. It was excellent meeting. At Alpha Sports, we've been doing basketball clinics on Sundays, but due to the participation numbers, we had quite a bit that show up on Sunday. Who still wants more training? We're doing for over spring break. We partner with Madison Community Center. So for boys and girls, grades 3rd through 8th grade. We'll split the sessions up, 2 different sessions. We'll do 3rd through 5th grade from 2 p.m. to 3:30 p.m. And then we'll do 6th through 8th grade from 3:30 to 5 p.m. It's just a skills development where they learn the game of basketball, and then we give them space to have just an open run to compete for a little bit. And we'll be there Monday through Thursday during those times. So if you have any youth, have them go to alphasports.org, go to our registration page, and they can sign up straight through there. So yeah, that's what we got coming up.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Y'all, I'm seeing the flyers come through in the chat. I appreciate y'all dropping the flyers in the chat. If y'all also want them included in Friday's newsletter, please do not forget to email them to me.
Hey, Marcus, on your Offer Sports website, when I click on the registration, it just goes to a link that shows me the flyer again. Is there another place we should be signing up?
You should be able to click on that link where in a basketball basket.
Yeah.
And it should say, what's it, registration here? It should take you to a sign up Genius page where you can sign up for those registration slots.
When I click that, it takes me to download the file again for the flyer.
Okay, give me a second. Let me do some operational stuff and let me see what's going on with that. But it should take you directly to a registration page.
All right, thank you.
No problem.
All right, y'all. I know the time is winding down. I'm gonna give if anybody wants to come off mute and shout out another event before we hop off, feel free to do so.
I don't have an event, but I just want to say I just love seeing all our people do what they do. Guys, I love it. Keep doing what you do. This is just simply amazing. Amazing work, Shekinah. And man, Marcus, you doing the dang thing, man. Love it, man. Love it. Thank y'all, man, for all the incredible work. Impact over income. Thank y'all. Real. Number of love. That's all I want to say.
Appreciate you, Ron. Well, thank y'all so much for being able to join. Y'all, if you were able to attend Village Week or any of the events that we had for Village Week, it was so amazing seeing y'all faces. Thank y'all so much for y'all participation. I could not end this call for thanking y'all for just being able to join us. Seeing y'all faces was just gave us all the encouragement that we needed, especially getting through this weather. So thank y'all so much. If you have any flyers, please email them to me. If y'all have any events where y'all are looking for volunteers, I would love to volunteer with y'all. So please just email me if y'all have any flyers, any volunteer opportunities that y'all have coming up. I would love to include them in Friday's newsletter. Thank y'all for joining this call today. If y'all need me, email me, and look forward to seeing y'all next week. See y'all. Be safe.
Bye.